In this chapter, I'll be familiarizing you with some of the more major options you'll be needing in order to export your models from applications such as Maya into the UDK. And if this is your first time using FBX with Maya, we're going to need to set it up. Maya has a plugin manager which is located in the window menu at the top. Choose Settings and Preferences, and from this submenu, at the bottom, select Plugin Manager. Now, FBX Maya is not loaded by default, so we're going to want to check both the Loaded and Auto Load checkboxes. Then click the letter I icon, which should now be lit. So this will tell you what version we're running, and if it's version 2011, then we're all good to go. If you can't get a hold of FBX 2011, give it a shot anyway, hopefully everything will work. So once both boxes are checked, hit close, and test it by going to the File menu. Choose one of the export options and scroll down to the bottom of the Formats drop-down. And when you do that, FBX should now be visible as an option. The same goes for import. You'll have a couple of new entries available there, which will come in handy later. Keep in mind that with Maya you have a couple of different export options. You can either export all, or just a selection. Each can lead to a different result. Generally, you want to make sure that you're only exporting the minimal amount of assets necessary. And for this reason, it's usually best to choose Export Selection. If you do otherwise, be aware that the package that you import to in Unreal can quickly become polluted with all kinds of junk that you don't need. So now let's take a look at some of the important options we'll be dealing with in the FBX exporter. And right now it doesn't really matter what option you choose, whether selection or all, as we're just taking a look. So at the bottom where it says Files of Type, scroll down and select FBX Export. DAE FBX is something different known as Collada, and while it's similar to FBX, we don't want to choose that. It doesn't work as well in Unreal. So the first options we'll see on the right can generally be ignored. You won't need them except maybe in some special cases. Depending on what program you're using or which export option you chose, the headings here might be a bit different, but the same option should be available. You may see something like Reference and Include options, or just a general tab. But the topmost section of FBX export options should generally have something like Default File Extensions, Preserve References, and Export Unloaded References. As none of these are normally relevant in Unreal Export, we'll move on to the next section. Let's expand the file type specific options, then under the Include subheading, Geometry. So regardless of whether you're exporting a skeletal or static mesh, you're going to want to turn on Smoothing Groups, and also Smooth Mesh. This will preserve your mesh normals. Under the Animation tab, it's quite straightforward. Check the box if you want to include animation, and leave it unchecked if you don't. If your animation has any handling by scripts that tell what to do, you'll want to select Bake Animation. Otherwise, it will not look the same in Unreal. If you have some blend shapes that you need to export from morphs in Unreal, you'll want to use the Deformed Models section. With cameras and lights, there's a little trick. You can only import them to Unreal via the Matinee editor, not the conventional way of the content browser. So that's only for meshes, animations, and materials. Speaking of materials, if you want your textures and materials to automatically be imported into the Unreal editor, then you should select Embed Media. Units can be tricky because every program handles them differently. What looks correct in Maya will look entirely too small in Unreal. So here I like to uncheck Automatic and choose File Units Converted to Millimeters. For axis conversion, up axis can be left at Y. Finally, for FBX file format, type can be set to either binary or ASCII. And version, of course, should be set to FBX 2011 if possible. So these are your basic settings for export, and that's of course one major part of the process, no doubt, but there's a whole other side of this that still needs to be demystified. And it's actually more important when it comes to avoiding errors when exporting to Unreal. So, modeling considerations. That's what we'll be focusing on in the next few chapters.